Welcome to another episode of Zwei Ales und Hockey Tales with Wally. And today I am so excited to have on a 48-year-old and 48-year-old from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. His hockey journey has taken him to Canada, Sweden, and he is a legend of Germany after 13 years of mucking it up, including over 260 DEL spiels. But his muck running started way back in the mid 90s when he put up 100 points and was named a second team All-Star with St. Boniface Saints. He then dominated with the University of Manitoba and even laced up for Team Canada in the Universiade. And he was there for a couple seasons before spreading his hockey wings and heading for Örebro in Sweden, and then promptly found a home in Deutschland and has never left. We're talking since 98, folks. Started himself in the third league and worked his way right to the top after running amok in the old honey hole Landshut, vaulting himself to the DEL and mucked it up with Ingolstadt for years and became a Pokal champion. He also then found a home with the big budget Kassel Huskies, and they promptly tried to buy a championship and did just that, becoming Deutsche Meisters like yours truly, and then for fun headed back to where it all started in Duisburg, and also for fun that year had the most apples and points by a D-man or a Verteidiger, folks, in the league. Welcome to the back deck, Brad Burym. Is it
Thank you,
Burym?
Molly. Yeah, you've done your homework. Very good. I'm very, very happy to be here and happy to join your podcast. I've actually been looking at your podcast, and I think it was actually quite wild that in your last few episodes, you interviewed a few ex-buddies of mine, and
Isn't it a
um,
small world?
it is the ice hockey world is small, and just looking at your career as well, your successful career. It's actually funny just with how many guys
Right.
that we've crossed paths with.
So your research team got hot too, because we could start name drops.
Yeah, yeah. In the last
um,
15 minutes.
well, you know what? I get into how we know each other to start, and we have had some good banter back and forth on the old honey hole Insta because when you told me to suck it when I posted the photo, you guys winning a castle, it made me well, it got the competitive juices flowing again, you know? I wish
Yeah,
I
I
was back
noticed
out there mucking it up again, playing game five
that.
all over again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was quite the series. That
It,
was really quite the series.
it was interesting. I wish it would have been best of seven, but it was a strange one because you guys were very much favored to win. But
Yeah,
then the games you won, like you smashed us like 5-6-0. And then the two games we won were like 1-0, 2-1, and we just greased them out. And then it
yeah,
comes down to one game for all the marbles. And
yeah,
that was one of the most well, one of the most intense hockey matches I've ever been a part of.
yeah. Yeah, that game, looking back on it in Castle, like if we wouldn't have won that game, the team would have went bankrupt. Like we were very really all chips in to get back to the DEL, and I don't even want to think of what would have happened and how much money everybody would have lost if we actually would have lost that game. And we were heavy favorites, as we were actually the year before. We were heavy favorites against Wolfsburg, and we lost. And yeah, then coming to play against you guys in the final, we knew it was going to be tough, but I don't like we didn't think it would be
That tough.
that tough in deciding game overtime and
I
yeah.
still remember like that was my first year in Germany. That's a long time ago. We're talking what, 2007, 8. And I still remember when we were going into overtime and like we went in for the intermission and like you're all sitting around looking at each other like we're going into overtime and whoever scores next is gonna win. You know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
It was the pressure was on, and it was more so on us than on you guys. I mean, if you guys would have won, nobody expected you guys to win that year.
no.
You guys had a great season, but you guys had some phenomenal hockey players on that team.
Well, when you
And
think of how we weren't picked to be up there, when you look at our roster, we had three lines of imports and older Germans that could all play, and we could roll three lines, no
yeah,
problem about it. And we also had 5 to 6 D men that could play. And we had a fourth line of kids that, when they got out there, they mucked it up. But like to think that, you know, you guys were really good for us to not even be considered in the mix to win that series. Like we had a squad. And what I love about that team was it brought back my love of hockey after North America and playing with the Landshut guys. They made hockey fun again. They were all in
Yeah.
it together. It wasn't about the goals and assists. It was about winning the games and being a team. And it was awesome.
So I actually played years and years back, actually, with a lot of the guys you guys played with on that team.
Yeah, the same
And
core.
that was my last year before, yeah, eventually getting a German passport and then bolting to the DEL. But like I had played with Hundhammer and
Hammer,
Hammer and Geipel
the
and
dog hammer and hammer. And then
Brynn
also
was there. I played with Daphner and Kassel. Veltzi was there. I didn't play with Veltzi, but I knew like you guys had Camille Tupal. I played with. You
the
guys had
ice the ice hockey god.
the ice
Was
hockey
he
guy.
the ice hockey god yet when you played with him? Because when I played with him, when
Yeah,
they
he
announced him,
was.
he was the ice hockey god.
He was way back then. I actually saw the ice hockey god in April. I was in Landshut in April. It was actually good to see him. I actually phoned up Hundhammer, but Hundhammer couldn't meet me on that trip. But I actually played against in a charity game against Camille in April in Landshut this
Is
past
that
April.
what the poster pic of the old timers from Germany where I called you
Yeah,
old balls?
yeah, yeah, that one. So it was with the Old Timers Germany, and actually he was playing with the Old Timers with the Czech team.
So
And
he would have played with the Czech team because he was in Germany a
yeah,
long
yeah,
time.
but he played with the Czech team, and yeah, they had some pretty good hockey players like Vaclav Nedoros was there, and Pavel Brendel was there, and
That would have been a fun game to
it was
play in, eh?
it was a fun couple nights in Landshut for sure, as it always is with that group.
Yeah, no kidding. So is that like the same time as when they were celebrating the 70 something years or something of Landshut hockey?
Yeah, that was a year before, I believe. Yeah, so this was just something completely different.
Oh, okay.
This
Because I
was
just was thinking it's a small world because Hammer sent me the photo of him and all the mafia at that get together in Landshut. I was thinking it was related, but man, Landshut's a hockey town, isn't it?
Landshut is a hockey town and absolute the Landshuter Mafia. They run everything in German hockey. Older Abschi runs the U18 team. Yeah, Christian Kunast is up there with the DEB. You know, they brought in a coach, this Carl. I don't even know what his name is. He runs all the coaches there, and I mean, it really is the Landshut Mafia running German ice hockey. So, but all great guys, and yeah, I played actually with most of them. To be quite honest with you, it's part
So
one of the
yeah, the
advantages.
ones I had written down here, you had Hundi Hammer, two of my
Yeah,
favorites,
yeah.
Silerama, Max Seiler. So
And
my
Max
funnies,
Max.
he would have been a kid then because when I played with him, he was mid 20s. But fun
Yeah.
fact, when I went to the Lama bar, we win the semis, we're going to the finals. He might have been hurt, but when we're celebrating, sweeping the semis and we're going to the finals, I saw him break a glass after he drank the beer. He broke it and then ate it. Ate the
Yeah,
glass.
yeah. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I mean that team when I played in Landshut, I think we lost maybe 5 games the entire year. That year, because I
Isn't
was
it
playing.
fun winning?
Oh God! I had 3 years like that. I had the 2 years with Kassel in the second league, and the year in Landshut. The year in Landshut, our team was so ridiculous that we beat Dresden in the semifinal to go to the final to play California. The weekend before California, we went on a ski trip because the snow was better. So Bernie Engelbrecht was our coach, and the whole team. We went to, I think it was Tirol. Uh, Final, like literally 5 days before the final began, and we were, I guess, as you would say, mucking it up in Tirol, just getting absolutely polluted after
Having a
the game
time.
semifinal. And then we swept the final, and yeah, moved up.
And I guess that's how I end up playing in Landshut when they're back in the second league then, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Small
that would have
world.
been so when I would have played against you, then that would have been so after that year, I went to Ingolstadt in the DEL, and then I was there
Yeah.
for
3 years
Three
and
years.
another year's. Hey, you're getting way ahead of yourself. You just slow down. The research team got real hot here. Okay. But you know what? I'm going back to the final game. We're gonna get this off my chest before we move on. Today I wore my Bietigheim Steelers Deutsche Meister hat and shirt
Yeah,
for the first time since I had my cutoff jeans at the parade.
there you
And
go.
just wanted to let you know I did win the next year, but
Good
that
for
was a
you.
heartbreaker. When that does happen, I always say winning is the opposite of losing. And that last goal, like it changes history. It changed that you guys were then DL players and we were not. It changed that like we were always considered second place and you guys won. And it was all over one goal. And
Yeah.
what was interesting is another guy you played with when the research team got hot also got two penalties in that overtime. Gunter Oswald,
Ozzy, another one of the
Landshut Mafia.
Landshut Mafia. Yeah. And
I saw he's running
that,
things for Red Bull Munich in like their junior league, under 20 or something.
the last time I saw Ozzy, I think he was with the Red Bulls, but the Red Bull Salzburg team running their junior program. I don't know. It could be that he's now in Munich. I
Oh,
guess his
sorry,
son,
I meant Salzburg. You're
yeah.
right. I was thinking Red Bull. I got, they're everywhere. People still drink Red Bull? I guess
Yeah, Red
so.
Bull vodka. The Red Bull vodkas, they pull it out, keep the night going. But
Hmm,
he actually his son is actually a really good hockey player, rising up to the ranks as well. So you're probably going to see him in the next couple of years. His son fight.
really?
Mm.
Um,
Another good guy.
Well, just they say genes are a thing, but yeah,
Yeah.
Ozzy was a dandy. It's too bad he took two penalties in the 4-on-4 overtime. We killed the first one 4-on-3. Another, soft spot for me is, it's the final game of the final series. And you talking we got to play 4-on-4? Why don't we play 5-on-5 and keep playing till somebody wins?
Yeah. To be honest, my recollection from that night is that it was really, really tight. And I remember going out for the overtime just thinking, God, keep it simple, stupid.
Mhm.
Don't do anything and don't get walked, whatever you do. Yeah, being a D man, because you guys had some pretty good forwards. And the last thing you would want to do is, especially in a game like that,
Be the guy that made the mistake, right?
be the goat. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when Bannister scored on that one timer,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think the whole city erupted. It was just,
It was,
wow.
that Kassel Arena, it can rock. And
Yeah,
when that's my first year in German hockey and we are playing in games like that, um, hockey really had never been so fun and exciting. And when those crowds get going and they're chanting their songs and the drums are going and like you're playing in the finals for the German championship, that's about as fun as it gets.
yeah,
Until you lose.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. But I honestly, that team in Castle, the funny thing is with that team in Castle is that in many ways, losing the first year because of the contracts they were handing out was probably better for a lot of us, including myself, than winning it and going back to the DL right away. Because I mean, that first year we got relegated from the DEL. We lost against actually Duisburg of all teams, and then we went to the second league, and the mission was
To go back up.
to go
All in.
right back up. And so that year, actually, Stefan Riche, actually, to go back one step before that, before I even came to Kassel. So I came to Kassel from the Hanover Scorpions, and the Hanover Scorpions, the player going in the other direction was kind of a trade. You know what the player going in the other direction was?
No.
Dominic Hammer.
Really? I
Yeah,
saw he was on both teams that year. That
yeah.
really?
Well, I wasn't. I was having a rough time in Hanover, not playing a whole lot,
He was doing the same in Kassel and they
and
flip-flopped.
and, and Landshut was in Kassel, Bernie Engelbrecht, and he convinced me with a ridiculous contract to come over for that year and the next year in Kassel. So I signed like a year and a half deal. And my first thing was to my agent. My agent was like, I told my agent, well, Kassel might get relegated, and there's no DEL clause. And my agent looked at me and said, like, like, are you stupid? I mean, for that money, you play wherever, whatever happens. And actually, it was a good thing because we ended up losing that year. We get relegated, and I remember getting called into the owner's office that year. So actually, after I came to Kassel, 2 weeks later, the guy who actually brought me to Kassel gets fired. Bernie gets fired, and Stefan Riche, who's now running things in Berlin, gets called to Kassel to try to save us. He didn't save us, but he was then named coach and GM the next year, and he was a guy, German legend, and what he's done in the DEL in the last years, he's won everywhere he was. But like I don't think he had any clue, to be quite honest with you, with salaries in the second league because the money that they
I
gave up.
I know. We were playing you guys. We know.
Yeah,
Um, like that I found it interesting though, because in Germany, when you lose, like they blame you. They blame players. It's kind of like how I left Bietigheim, I guess. But anyways, like you guys got relegated from the DL, and then I
yeah,
saw there was a bunch of you that they brought back for the second league. That Kraft, who had played in the show, and
yeah,
I didn't realize that they would stick with guys because most teams in Germany is once you get relegated, they're cleaning house with the imports.
yeah. I was shocked, to be quite honest. Like we had Drew we basically are the entire D crew. Like I was the first guy to resign, and to be honest, I was a little bit shocked because Riche he wasn't really my biggest fan. But when I went in to meet the owner was his name was Rainer Lippi at the time, and that cat, I'll never forget going into his office right after the season because then he said, "Okay, Brad, we want to resign you," and I was like, "Okay, fine, Reiner, perfect." But there's no need to resign because I already
Right.
have a contract that was valid, and so he goes, "No, we have the clauses in there. It was only for the deal." I said, "No, it wasn't." So he gets his secretary. His secretary goes, grabs my contract, comes back. He's reading my contract line by line, and his face is getting redder and redder. Redder. To the point, his face, honestly, his face is redder than a baboon's ass. So he
That's
looks at me
funny.
and he says to me, "Okay, Brad, we can't we can't pay you this in the second league." He goes, "Would you be willing to be flexible?" I said, "Yeah, sure, Ryan, I'll be flexible. Call my agent." So I left the room, call my agent. My agent says, "Okay, this is what we're going to try. We're going to try for 3 years with about 15% less on your salary." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, great idea." And they were like, right away, "Sure, we're going to do it. It's perfect." And
And then you
basically,
got a 3-year deal.
I got a 3-year deal, and that contract basically bought my house in Duisburg. Because I don't think Stefan Riche, when he took over, I don't think he had a clue how much guys were making in the second. Like we had guys making over 100,000 euro net
Shut up.
in the second league. Yeah, guys
Shut
like
up.
Bannister and
Do you know
Kraft.
what I played for in Landshut that year?
I
Do you want to
don't.
know? Yeah, I don't even think I should say it on the air.
I played too, like in Landshut. When I came to Landshut, I so that was in the third league. I actually played in the previous three teams in the third league all went bankrupt.
I
I
played
played
for
in
25,000 euros.
Okay, and see my year in Landshut, I played for 16,000 euros. 16,000.
That's what I mean. And then that like, it's interesting when you could hear about what other people were getting in Germany and you're like, geez, why am I so far away from that?
Yeah,
But then I was also like the trailblazer that screwed it for a lot of players because the second league and the DL closes. There's nobody moving up and down. And dickheads like me came over for the 20, 25 grand and then showed they could play. And
yeah,
then teams realized, why don't we keep trying this all the time with guys that are fresh and pro and we'll pay
yeah,
them nothing. And then we're even going to put them on a tryout. And if they come over and suck, we send them back. And if they're good, then guess what? They made 16 grand this year.
yeah. But actually, guys like you are actually also the reason why, for example, in the DEL they have 10 imports instead of, like, for example, in Switzerland, I think they have three because um, Germans are just way too expensive, right? And at the time when I was, for example, when I was in Kassel, I was a German, right? And in the
But
second
they
league,
should be expensive because there's a lot of imports and it's supply and demand, right? Folks, I got my MBA now. Like there's not that many Germans. And when it comes down to winning championships, the better the Germans usually wins the championship. The
Yeah,
imports kind of cancel each other out. And
yeah,
then it comes down to who's got the better Germans in goaltending.
more often than not. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And it would make you guys expensive if you're a German and can play. And it's like, but it's quite stressful as an import.
But that year in Landshut, so I got to Landshut because the year before, like I was playing for a team called Gelsenkirchen. It was called the Schalke Haie, they were called. And after 6 games, the team went bankrupt. And so there was like a 2 month time frame where I was actually just kind of looking for a job. And actually, I had a tryout in Landshut, Bernd
And so
Trunchka.
you're in Germany, just sitting around waiting for a
Yeah,
tryout.
yeah, it's hanging out at the time with my ex-wife, and Landshut calls me for a tryout. I went and I played great.
And did you say it was Burnt Trunchka?
Yeah, Bernd Trunchka, because he was the GM and Gary Clark was the coach, and
Well,
Gary wanted to
so
keep me.
Burnt is the guy that brought me to Germany for Small World. He was the one that signed me in Landshut,
Yeah,
and I actually lived in his house for 2 weeks when I got there.
yeah. Have you ever heard the story about Jason Clark on Bernd Trunchka and Bernd Trunchka's dog?
No, I'd love to though. I'm excited.
Yeah. So, anyways, um, yeah, they couldn't. Had a really good
You need to tell me the
tryout with
story
me.
about the dog.
They don't sign me, but then for the next year, they said, okay, we don't have any money, but we have a really good team come by. You can kind of use it as a springboard for the next year or whatever. And actually, that's what I did. But yeah, so like,
So that's when you made the 16 grand was you went for a tryout and
yeah,
they're like, well, we got
yeah,
no
but it
money.
was it
It's
was
bizarre in Germany, man, when you see that stuff. Once the season starts and teams are trying to pick up the odd player or two. I remember a couple guys coming to Bietigheim for tryouts that were established good players. And they came, they played great, and would obviously make our team way better. And then they're like, well, this is all the money we have. Take it or leave it. And it was like nothing,
yeah,
like
yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, and that's how it was with me. But I knew from the guys that were there, I knew we were gonna win. So it was kind of, and I knew I was getting my German pass. So my agent at the time said, "Listen, go there." And at the time, my ex-wife was a stewardess, so she could fly from Munich. So everything kind of just aligned. And then yeah, it worked out because I was in English that. But yeah, Jason Clark, I guess, lived with Bernd Trunchka, and and there was an incident. I think it was with his dog or his cat. Although I should be careful there because this podcast is going to be published. But anyways,
It
I'm
won't get
not
published
I'm
that quick.
not
It'll
I'm
only be
not
out in
I'm
like
not
30
saying
minutes.
it's true,
Right.
but it
Everything's
might.
hypothetical in the
It's
shed.
hypothetical, but it could have been that somebody at some point ran over the dog on the way into town or something like that. It could have been. It was the dog or a cat.
Like killed it.
Yeah, unfortunately, and I don't know if he ever found out about it, and yeah, so
Uh, so he doesn't. So you're saying he might have covered it up that, well, yeah, how
it
would you
might have
know,
been.
right?
Yeah,
You'd have to check.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to check the tires, I guess. But
But I actually, yeah, Bernd was great. He brought me in, and yeah, at the time when I was in Landshut, yeah, Bernie Engelbrecht was the coach, and Trunchka was the GM there.
I thought he was a good, smart hockey guy.
Yeah, he was
Everything he said to me made
good guy.
sense. Yeah, he was fair to me. And like when I was living with him, and like it was like my first game or two, and on the way back from the game, like what he would say to me was kind of like, yeah, I would agree with what you said. He's like, the first period and a half, you were great, you were moving your feet, and then, it looked like you got a bit tired, or then it would, and then, he made me go to the Bible France. I don't know who that is, but he made put me in a fat camp, and then I was ready for playoffs, and I was ready to go, and he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, no, he was good. No question about it.
Um, Anyways, it is a small world, isn't it, when you get talking around? So the other thing is how we know each other is you would have been playing in my first ever game in Germany. So this was
Okay.
4 games into the season. I
Mhm.
show up when Bill True gets his German pass and goes to the DL. So then I'm the new import, and our first game is in Kassel, and I couldn't believe the atmosphere, the fans, the everything about German hockey. I was like
Yeah.
so shocked of how big it was. I had no idea what I was getting into. And then I go out there and my first shift ever in Germany, my bucket pops off and I think, geez, I'm going to show my teammates what's up. Like I'm going to keep going with no bucket and I'm going to keep skating around and mucking it up. And I got a penalty. And then you guys scored on the penalty because I played without a helmet. And then I got to the penalty box and the guy in the penalty box in Kassel goes, so you must be the new guy.
Yeah, yeah,
Didn't know that rule, you
yeah.
know?
It was a great barn in Castle. Great barn, great atmosphere, and actually a lot of similarities with Landshut. Like when I was in Castle, we had a lot of young, good young players from Castle. Great kids, and
Right.
yeah, I'm still friends with them to this day. Also, the same with the guys actually in Landshut. Like if I ran into, I still keep in touch a little bit with Marcus Hundhammer. Whenever, like if I'm gonna go to Landshut, I'll give him a call. Maybe once every couple of years, I'll reach out to him if I'm in.
Hundy's a dandy. Love that guy.
That area. But like I love those guys. Marcus Meyer was also there, great guy, and
It's interesting how so many good hockey dudes can be from one town.
yeah, it's just a small town too. I know it's 60,000 people or whatever live there.
I loved it there. I wish they would have had their financial situation sorted out and had money to pay people because I would have
Yeah,
stayed there, you know.
yeah, true. That is true. Mhm.
Um, okay. So, where and what are you doing now?
Well, now I work for a finance technology firm from Hamburg, and it's kind of a mixture of finance and IT for a firm called Sarala. So, yeah, before COVID, I would be on the road Mondays to Thursdays. Since COVID, I basically, yeah, I work from home constantly. But yeah, well, at the beginning,
So it's a
near,
lot of computer stuff. And are we
yeah, yeah, I'm
talking when you're talking with coworkers, do sprechen Deutsch oder English?
only in German, only in German.
All day you're speaking German.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, one of the best things I ever did was when I came to Germany when I was 22. I played 1 year in Sweden, and I always felt guilty because when I was in Sweden, I didn't learn the language. When I came to Germany, I made sure I was like, okay, I'm really going to buckle down and learn the language because it's going to improve my
Life.
lifestyle. And if I'm here for a few years, then it'll pay off. And to be quite honest, it really did because I was able to right from my first year, and I still have contacts from my, every year I played in Germany, especially the first few years when I was playing in the third league. There was only 5 or 6 imports, and to be quite honest, the young German guys are always the funnest guys to be around. So being able
They
to
really
converse
are.
with them and just see the shenanigans, what would happen when I was out with those guys, it was always fun. I was able to reach out with them. But yeah, no, so
Learning
I'm in
German though is
level.
a big deal, right? That's one thing
Yeah.
I would say. And like it's
Mhm.
hard because all the kids I speak to now, there's some guys even from around here that are over in Germany now. Some of them have German passes and you
Yeah.
talk to them over there and some of them are trying to learn the language, some of them aren't. And if I could do it over again, not that I would change anything I did, but I just learned from hanging out with Hammer and Geipe and the boys and like sitting there with them, listening to them, and then listening in the room. Like I never took courses, I never put an effort. I just learned it on the go. But it
Yeah.
took me until about the fourth year, and Hammer and I were out in Munich, or no, Stuttgart, and we're there's the German conversation, there's the English conversation, and I was still being nervous and not doing it. And I remember Hammer just saying to me one day, Waldo, you've been here now 4 years, 5 years. He goes, it's embarrassing. Speak German. And I'd had a couple and I was like, all right. And then I started actually like trying. And then I realized like I could do it. And it was from when I first started trying when the people pretend they can't understand you. And then your
Yeah.
confidence gets shot and you're like, well, I don't want to try then. And then when you stop caring, it's like, oh, it actually works. You know?
Yeah. 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 No, with me, like I didn't the at the very end of my career, to be honest, my last year in the DEL was in Castle, and I knew I wasn't going back to the DEL. And then I actually signed in the second league for the team that was called uh, for the Duisburg team that was supposed to go in the second league. They didn't get their license, so what the owner there did, a guy named Ralph Poppy, is he owned a team in the third league. So he sent us all to the third league, and that was the year that really I was like, okay, go from the DEL then to the third league. in a lot of ways, as much maybe as you know, my years under Stefan Riche were difficult. Um, it really helped me because I basically knew my career was coming over, and I didn't want to just be coaching, the kids here in Germany for not a lot of money. So that's when, I enrolled in courses from the University of London and got I got a bachelor's degree in business administration with international business, and I got my coaching licenses beside that because I wasn't, to be quite honest, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it, but yeah, I made it, and I coached a little bit actually up until a couple of years ago, just with my son. He's playing in Dusseldorf, and to be quite honest, now the only thing I do that has to do with ice hockey is I'm on the advisory board for the Dusseldorf AG for their kids, for the kids program, for the Nachwuchs program, but I'm not actually
Involved,
there on a
involved.
daily basis doing,
How
you
old's your
know,
son?
he's 15.
So he's
He's
right into it
15.
right now.
Yeah. He likes hockey a lot, and yeah, he's been in Dusseldorf now for over 8 or 9 years. Actually, for us, it was he started here in Duisburg, and then eventually it was, okay, is he going to go to Krefeld or go to Dusseldorf? Because both cities are basically the same length away. But in Dusseldorf, there was basically all ex teammates of mine, and actually, um, all ex teammates of mine that were actually coaching and or being coaches, or for example, a guy like Tino Booz, who I did the coach's trainer to get my trainer license with. He was there, and
And that
yeah,
then it makes you comfortable, right? For your kid, you
yeah,
know they're in good hands,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you
exactly.
know they're getting taught by the right guys. And I see what kind of beer you're drinking there. That's the Augustiner, eh? That's the good
Yeah,
stuff.
so I've
That's the
honestly
best beer in the world, in my opinion.
I agree. So I've been a
I,
bachelor now
been a
since
long time since I've had one of those.
I've been a
Long time.
bachelor now since January. I got a beer fridge, and there's always 2 cases of Augustiner in my beer fridge. So Wally, if you're ever in around here, you're always welcome to come and have a cup of cold beers.
Gosh darn it, that sounds lovely. Yeah, and that, what's interesting about all this and starting this chatting around is I got a lot of stuff off my chest about how everything went in my career, but that I can sit down with you and chat after the battle we had back then. Like that was the only year we ever crossed paths. Was that was an epic series of a finals of a league that was about as exciting as hockey gets, even though we lost.
Yeah, and like in Kassel, it was like those 2 years. It was like thank that if we would have lost, it would have been there. That would have been it. There would have been no more Kassel Huskies. I mean, that happened actually a couple of years later, where they actually
Yeah.
ended up going bankrupt anyways, but we kept it afloat then and moved to the DL the next year. But those 2 years where we only lost 8 and 9 games, man. I mean, those
Well,
were two of the
right,
funnest years of my life because
right,
we were winning every weekend. We had a team that really liked to get after it, and so
right.
we Cabina Fest every Tuesday. So you would
Because you
drink.
win, you get Cabina Fest when you win.
We would drink Tuesdays. A road game on a Friday. Win
When
quesadilla on the bus. Get
hanging out with the
home
boys.
game home game on a Friday. Uh, then rip it up at the Irish pub afterwards, in downtown Kassel. Saturday was always, the Auslauf, just to get the alcohol out of the system, and then do it all again on Sunday.
And win again and then have a time.
It was every single week. We went to, 2 years in a row, like basically, really,
Yeah.
we're alcoholics. Yeah, it was.
But then what goes on that year before when you did lose in the finals? They couldn't have been too thrilled with you guys.
No, they weren't, but we lost to another team that was really trying to move up in Wolfsburg, and actually they were really good. And I think, I mean, we played so structured, but we didn't have a lot of creativity that year. And yeah, I don't know. Like we lost 3 1 goal games, and that was it. It was kind of just over before it even started. It was
Mm.
shocking, and actually
And that
for
it's
us
weird for me
too.
to hear the history of everything because I always thought of Wolfsburg as a DL team. I never even pictured
Yeah,
them of being in that league because then they close it and the teams that are up are up and teams that are down are down. And what's bizarre for me is like, so you guys win, you go up to the DL and good for you guys. You won fair and square. So then I signed with Bietigheim, the new big budget team, right? The new Kassel Huskies that are
yeah.
buying a championship. And I'm like, let's do this. And then we do win. And we bought the team, we win it, just like you guys. And then because of the financial crisis with Porsche and losing their money, they're like, well, we're not going up now, but we won.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And all these guys had it in their contracts. Like, so your second league players this year, if you win and move up, you get like the 15% raise. And
yeah,
all these guys have it in their contract. And then you're telling me we won, we should go up, but now we're still second leaguers.
yeah, yeah. That
Bizarre
sucks, but
world, right? And then
it happens
everybody's
in
got that on
Germany.
their resumes, right? Like, oh, we're DL players, we're second league players. And it's like, well, there's actually not that much difference, right?
I didn't. To be quite honest, my years, I was actually probably a better DEL player than I was a second league player, to be quite honest with you. Well, although in the second league,
Well,
like I
because you could
mentioned,
just play your role, right? And like you just play a role there. You don't have to do so much. And I found the exhibition games against the DL teams weren't harder. They were more passing and more positional play, but like it wasn't a harder game.
yeah, no, 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 agreed,
Mhm.
agreed. Yeah, it's more structured, right? In the DL, for example, as a defenseman, you would know how much time when you would get a D to D pass, you would basically know because nobody's really out of position. Yeah, sometimes not actually. I think the second league is very similar to the DL, to be quite honest with you.
The
But
third
playing in the
league is where
third
it gets a
league,
bit
third
chaotic
league
out
is
there.
you have no idea where everybody's at, and you have to have your head on a swivel and know what's going on. Where in the DEL, you kind of actually would always know, where everybody is and how much time you would basically have to make a play, right?
Well, for sure. And it's kind of like when I would do, say, when I'm skating through the neutral zone and I'd make my moves or do the wand over the puck. It's like I found the lower the leagues I played in, people wouldn't buy what I was selling as much. And the better the players, I would know what they were going to buy or sell. And then all of a sudden, the guy's still standing there because he didn't make the move on the first move. And I'm like, oh, you're still here.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah. Anywho, okay. Poster picks. Let's get into
yeah.
these.
Yep, yep,
The old timers for Team Germany. You're
yeah.
actually a Canadian. That's pretty cool. You got to be on that team.
I've got it. Well, yeah, I've got a German pass though, right?
No, I know. I
And
know you do.
so I take pride on it. Like I'm basically the only. I'm the only migrant on the team. Yeah,
That's cool.
and like the guys that run it, Christian Helber, Michael Brezak, Nico Pika, and Christian Vent. It's it's a lot of fun because we play 2 or 3 games a year, and
So this
yeah.
isn't just a one-time thing. You're doing this.
Oh no! So there used to be actually like an unofficial old timers world championship in Belarus of all places, and actually Belarus would play every year, and they would be rigged and they would win. But actually, the dictator Lukashenko would play every year. But I mean, we used to go every single year, and every single year, every single day. I mean, it would be a shit show.
Right.
It would like
Right.
so basically you meet up with these guys and
That
just
everybody used to be hockey players and you're all
yeah,
living your normal life now. And then you go
yeah,
back and get to do it for a weekend and that's going to be a shit show. It's like
yeah,
the testimonials in the UK. So I've been
yeah,
fortunate
exactly.
enough to go back for a couple of them and they are shit shows every time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
absolutely.
hockey though, right?
Yeah, no, you're right.
And
Yeah,
I hate to say this to you because I've been chirping you all the time, but you're 48 years old, eh?
I am.
You're quite fit for a work at home guy.
But being single will do that for you, right? So
Right. Yeah. You got
that's
to
not
get
the
the
same
abs
thing for the
back,
ladies.
eh?
Yeah, but thanks, Wally. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
no, you look fitter than me still. But yeah, poster pics that, I posted a couple times there, that team picture of the Kassel Huskies after you
Yep.
won. Um, Jeepers, you guys look as happy as people get. And I remember going into the locker room and I was still new to pros my second year. And it was also my second year in a row losing in the finals. I lost in the finals to the coast the year before. and you go in and the disappointment in the room, and you got grown men crying. You got Kamil Tupel, ice hockey god, that's 38, 39, and he's nearing the end. And he gave it everything he had, and we all did, and he's crying. And then like you realize how important it all is, and winning is the opposite of losing.
Yeah, that year was a fun year. Yeah, and it ended the right way for us.
Yeah, whatever. You guys looked happy. So you also won in the DL, the Pokal.
We won the Deutsche Pokal actually, so I never won a championship. Although the NHL lockout year we should have won actually in Ingolstadt. And actually, that if there's one really big regret was that my third year in the DEL when the NHL lockout year came, because we had Marco Sturm, we had Andy McDonald, Jamie Langenbrunner, Aaron Ward, Jimmy Waite was our goalie. I mean, we had Jakub Ficinic, who at the time we had all those NHL players, but he was probably the best player in the DEL. I mean, we had a loaded team, but we won the Deutsche Pokal, but actually we partied that night as if it was actually the DEL championship because it was great. A lot of money got thrown in our Mannschaftskasse, but yeah, that was a tournament that you would actually hope the first round you would lose because it was a pain in the ass playing those games because you would start with Pokal, you would play against a DEL team would play against a third league team. And of course, I was also on the other side of it. Like I was on a third league team playing a DEL team, and you were super, super motivated
just to try and win, just to upset it that it's in the ice hockey news or wherever that look at this third league team just beat a DL team.
And just like to prove to yourself, okay, maybe you can play, maybe I can play with these guys. But
yeah,
being on the other side of it was shitty because I mean
it's a lose
game
lose.
was literally their seventh game of the playoffs playing against a DEL team. But yeah, that year once then you would play against DEL teams, it was just like normal games, and it didn't really mean too much till we played in the final actually against Dusseldorf. And I mean that was an intense game. I was actually in Ingolstadt. We won it, and that was Ingolstadt's first trophy in the DEL. Actually, they won it a few years later, but that year was actually always I look back and I think to myself, we should have won it. I mean, great group of guys too. I mean, I was talking about how in Kassel we partied like rock stars. That team too. I mean, we had Ron Kennedy was the coach, was very laid back, and same thing. Every road trip, beers on the bus. Every time we would travel the
It
night
can bring
before.
teams together.
Every road trip we would travel the day before, and every trip we would be on, we would go for a D-man's meeting, and we would drink beers before every single road game. I mean, it wasn't we weren't getting blasted. We would always
Right.
have
But you're going out for a couple and being a team.
yeah, every road trip and every Tuesday could be in a fest, and we didn't miss many opportunities to party either. So but that team we should have won.
Yeah, it sucks when you're on a team that should have won and you don't, but
Yeah.
winning the Pokal also yours truly got to do, but that was when I first went to Bietigheim. I know what you're talking about because when we were there with our big budget team, we were still playing DL teams and we could hang. We were beating DL teams with our second league team, and we
Yeah.
were right in the mix of moving on out of the group stage or whatever. And it was pretty neat. But then they canceled the DL being in. It's just the second and third leagues playing. And
Yeah.
then it was just your random games and nobody gave a shit. And we were brutal in the regular season. We were in the playdowns. But then we make it to the finals of the Pokal. And then all of a sudden we have a game that's sold out and everybody's jacked. And then we got to celebrate a trophy. And the boys got to go out all night and act like we won the Stanley Cup, even though we were a brutal
Exactly.
team.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's what we did. That's what we did in English that the year we won it. The same thing.
Yeah, no, and winning is fun. So next poster pick, Slapshot with the Hanson brothers. You look
Yeah.
like you were in like a movie.
Oh man, that was such a cool experience. So a guy who actually the guy's name was Kerry Goulet who put together this team. And Kerry Goulet was an older German guy who he played in Germany years, and actually I think he actually works for the Ice Hockey News now, to be quite honest with you. And he does podcasts like you do, but he actually he had the Hansons on his radar. And so the Hansons would do a German tour. Of course, they need they need somebody to play with the hands and man, oh man, I mean, that was a really, really fun time to meet those guys. So I got to play with them, and they do the whole.
So they did like a show where you guys were the Chiefs and
Yeah,
played the other
you
team?
start the game, and Denny Lemieux, he would have been in his 70s, the goalie. So he does something stupid the first shift, and then a police car comes, drags him out. The Hansons do a couple shifts where they're running around like donkeys, and then they go off, they sign autographs, and then of course then they need the idiots to play the rest of the game. So but what was cool was afterwards, just drinking beers with those guys and getting to know them, and great
That
guys. I think they're all really good hockey players back in
that's
the
what is fun about hockey is the getting to know a bunch of people from different backgrounds and what
yeah.
everybody's about, right?
Yeah. No,
So
really
where
great.
did you do that? In Germany somewhere? You did
Yeah,
it once?
that would have been in Greyfrath, a city called Greyfrath. So it was a benefit game, and yeah, I got the opportunity to go, but it was actually really cool. Like I got the Chiefs jersey, and I still have it, and
That's cool.
yeah, it's
That is
great.
cool.
Really
Okay,
enjoyed it.
next poster pick. You're with Sergei Fedorov and some other guy.
Yeah. So the other guy, first example, is another guy that was with the German Oldtimers team. Because I mean, with that team, I mean that was in Belarus, and it was just a random night. The other guy actually in the picture is Dr. Marcus Flugel, and he's actually one of my roommates whenever he comes on the team, and it's just a ride. But we actually ran into old Sergi at a seedy karaoke bar one night in Minsk, and
You just ran into him.
yeah, like he was getting it. He was getting after with a couple of his Russian buddies, uh, drinking vodka, and I was able actually to meet with him, and just I had a kind of a little bit of an in because I actually played with Andy McDonald in Ingolstadt, and Andy McDonald, we played together in Anaheim, and just talking with him and shooting the shit with him. But oh man, that guy has everything together. Great looking guy, dressed to the nines. Really,
So
really
small hockey
successful.
world for you with all that story is
Yeah,
I go to Columbus Blue Jackets training camp. Sergei
yeah,
Fedorov's on the team and I met him there. And to think I went from Western Michigan to going to an NHL training camp with
yeah.
Sergei Fedorov, and I'm sitting beside him on a stationary bike, and I'm thinking, this is crazy. Because what growing up watching him on the Red Wings with Stevie Y, and then I'm at a training camp with him, and he's on the squad is wild, you know?
But just a super nice guy. Like, I mean, and he had every right just to say, "Hey, just beat it." Yeah, but he took the time, and like he was dipping heavy into the sauce, and actually he got in the karaoke. Wasn't much
Good.
of a karaoke singer, although I mean with the Russian language, it was kind
But
of
he gave her. He was
difficult to
up there
sing.
mixing it up.
Yeah, yeah. He got after it. But it was a fun night.
Well, the other
Um,
thing I remember of that small hockey world there was when I first started at Western Michigan, my first 2 years, I had the Anaheim Mighty Ducks at that point
yeah,
talking to me, and they were like meeting me in my hotel rooms and talking and interviewing, and then what they told me was that I reminded them of Andy McDonald, and he was
yeah.
on their team then running amok.
He was, to be honest, that lockout year. I mean, there was a lot of really good players that were in the DEL. Like to be Stefan Robidas played in Frankfurt. He was really good. Dougie Waite was in Frankfurt. Eric Cole played in Berlin, and actually, he was the guy who really turned things around. I was telling you about the series we lost against Berlin. Like he just went nuts in the playoffs. But for the whole year, just to
He was
see
a
it,
gamer, eh? He was a playoff guy
oh
even in the
man, he was
NHL.
so big and so strong, and you couldn't really do too much against him. But really, on a talent basis, Andy McDonald was the one guy where I was like, oh my god, this guy is so much better than this. Like Marco Sturm, like was really like he was really good. I mean, and these guys were all a touch better than us, but we could actually, you had this feeling that you could play with them, right?
Yeah.
Jamie Langford, the same thing, but Andy McDonald was the one guy where um, it was just crazy what
It
he
is
could do.
interesting when you get on the ice with people that are just way better than you, and you have to
Yeah,
recognize that like this isn't close.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Yeah. I was skating with O'Reilly back in the day, and then I helped him out this summer. And when you get on the ice with him and how his size and strength, and then you see him put the puck in the net, and you're just like, jeepers, this guy's good.
How big and strong he is. Yeah,
Yeah, it's wild.
yeah.
Um, Okay, next poster pick is the Ingolstadt Pokal. That's the team pick. What barn
Yeah.
is that in? Where did you win? Did you say that?
That was in Ingolstadt. That was actually in
It
the
nearly looked outdoors.
in the Saturday. Well, the first year in the DEL, actually, that's where we played. Like when I signed in the DEL from Landshut, actually there was a couple of teams that I was talking to, but I thought probably the best chance I would have to eventually play was going to be in Ingolstadt, and they played in an outdoor rink. So we played our first years actually in an outdoor rink, and it was ridiculous. But that year was actually in the new rink where they play now, the Saturn Arena.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't been to that one. And then the next poster pick, I'm guessing maybe this is the ex-Frau, but it looks like you were some kind of rock star.
Yeah. Okay. So this again, and actually the last few years, so many stories from the German Oldtimers team. Um, we were in downtown Minsk, running amok, a
Yes.
1940 game, and the next day I think we played Finland. So I was with a bunch of guys, and actually this old guy, the guy in the picture comes in, yeah, the old rock star, looks like a rock star, had to be a rock star, right? He had the long hair,
Has to be a rock star.
came in with an absolute rocket. And I was thinking to myself, my first thought was, geez, that has to be Alice Cooper. That has to be Alice Cooper. Look, Alice Cooper's and the guys, they were sitting maybe 2 or 3 meters across from us, and we were convinced it was Alice Cooper because I was the only guy who could speak English like fluently. It was the only native English speaker. They were like, because we heard they were speaking English. They were like, okay, Brad, you're gonna go talk to them. So I was like, okay, guys, let's just wait. They'll have a few beers and wait till they at least finish their meal before we go approach them.
Right.
So we do that, and I go over, and I go over thinking, this is fucking Alice Cooper. I'm gonna talk to Alice Cooper. And I didn't say the name. I said, hey, I'm a big fan of yours. Would you mind taking a picture of us? And right away, the wife Maya, the blonde, was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Pictures with my husband. Yeah, great. So we had pictures, and we gave him every single, we were all decked out with German national team stuff. We were giving him all this stuff, and actually we invited him to the next day against the Finland. We were playing against Finland the next day for the old timers, and his wife was like, I mean, we signed autographs or whatever and took pictures. And then we were actually on the bus ride home, and one of our guys looked at me and they were like, looks up Alice Cooper, and like Alice Cooper is like almost 2 meters. He's like 6'5", 6'6", Alice Cooper. This guy's
Tiny.
just like smaller than us, Wally. It was like 5'5", and so
And it
first of all,
wasn't Alex Cooper.
it wasn't Alice Cooper. We thought we met Alice Cooper, but it wasn't Alice Cooper. So then I actually Googled, and it turns out it was Joe Lynn Turner from Deep Purple.
Really?
So I
He was clearly a rock star.
yeah, he's clearly a rock star, but we didn't. I had no clue. But it was actually Joe Lynn Turner. So it was super funny, and I didn't expect anything more. But the next day, so we're driving to the rink to play Finland, and his wife calls and was like, "Okay, hey Brad, we can't make the game." And to be quite honest, I completely. That's kind
Forgot.
of what we expect. It's kind of what we expected, right? Like,
Yeah.
why did this guy want to hang out with us anyways, right?
Mhm.
A bunch of old timers hockey guys. But he was like, listen, but you guys have your like a Christmas dinner in downtown Minsk, and we'd like to come to that. Perfect. You're invited. Actually, the leader of the German embassy was also there that evening with us and went out. And it was amazing just sitting around with him and the stories that guy could tell. Like he was
I could
telling me stories
imagine.
from the 70s. He's at a party and Mick Jagger and David Bowie are making out, and Elton John was nuts, and Freddie stories were Freddie, but like just crazy. And we're getting into the sauce. And anyways, I tell Joe at some point
It's one of
I'm
those
getting
nights you
after,
don't forget, eh?
yeah, and I'm getting after it too. And I tell Joe, I said, Joe, listen up. You might be a great singer, but I told him I have a great voice. And if I wasn't a pro hockey player, I probably would have been a pro singer. I've got that great of a voice. So I said, you know what? You may be a rock star, but if we ever went head to head in karaoke, I would kill you. He looks at me, goes, "Man, fuck you.
Yeah.
We're doing this.
Game
We're
on.
doing this tonight." Yeah. So
Yeah.
he gets Maya phones some seedy bar in Minsk. We go to the bar gets shut down, and we actually had a karaoke battle with the rest of the boys. And that was great. Went head to head against Joe Lynn Turner in
Can you
karaoke.
actually sing?
No, no.
No, I'm a fantastic dancer, and I'm not just saying that. I
Yeah,
am. But
yeah,
karaoke,
yeah,
I struggle, and I have done
yeah.
it a couple times. I've lost some head-to-head battles, but not against rock stars.
But
Um,
he,
yeah.
but this guy was great. I mean, he just killed it too because he was a big Sinatra fan. So he sang a couple Sinatra fans. Of course, my teammates gave it to me at the end, like so it was kind of like American Idol, whatever. They gave me the win, but it was great because we kept in touch with him. A couple of years later, he was touring in Germany. We went to see him, and it was actually just a real uh, cool thing getting to know a rock star like him and just shooting the shit with him. And I love listening to stories. And
Do you?
this
I find that I might
this
like it too.
this cat had some serious stories. Yeah.
So you did, or you were born in Winnipeg,
Yep.
right? You raised there?
Born in Winnipeg. I moved to Calgary for 7 years. From I was the age I was 5 to I was 12, and then we moved back to Winnipeg. And
That
yeah,
is that somewhat tough then for a kid? Like having friends and then moving and then
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it wasn't great. I mean, I wish we would have stayed in Calgary. To be honest, my mother at the time wanted to move back to Winnipeg, and because she was born in Winnipeg, but no, wasn't a great fan. To be honest, like Winnipeg, love my buddies from Winnipeg, but
Not much there.
the city's a whole. I mean, if you're going to compare it to Toronto or Calgary or Vancouver, um,
See, I'm not really into Toronto either.
really, see, and I love the GTA, love
Ew.
it, and
What?
I
What's wrong
do.
with you?
I really,
You
I mean,
like mucking it up in traffic and not knowing how long it's going to take to get places or what?
well, I'm only there. Like, I'm there to visit my mother that's in Mississauga when I come, and actually, a good buddy of mine, Danny Del Monte, lives in Mississauga as well. So I visit him, and
I know who. Did he not? Didn't he play for Hanover?
he did play for Hanover, and
Was he not a bit out of shape?
a bit would be
Right?
would
I
be
remember watching him play and he was really smart, but I
yeah.
tell you, he made me look fast
Yeah. Uh, phenomenal hands, right?
and
Like
vision and saw the ice. Had
yeah,
the he was smart, just couldn't get around well.
and and just he's actually to this day one of the funniest guys I played with. Like I really, really self-deprecating, really, really sure. I gotta say this too, though. He's really, really sure of himself. Dan, he knows how good he was, right? And he'll tell you, but he's also the first one to laugh at himself. And I love the guy. I think he's great. He's such a breath of fresh air.
Yeah,
So I think with
I
him every
remember
time I
him.
go to Toronto, I make a point of going to see him, and his boy Ryan he actually played for the U20 national team this year, the German national team, because he has a German pass. His mom's German,
Really?
Melanie, and I mean they've become really good friends with us. And make sure that we visit them. And um, his kid's an overager this year playing for Mississauga in the O, and I think he is going to absolutely tear it up because he is filthy, filthy mitts.
Well, the old man. Well, they say genes are a thing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So okay, so then you go back to Winnipeg. You kind of grew up in Calgary. So then
yeah,
where is Saint Boniface Saints? Because that's the
yeah.
first team the research team finds.
Yeah, so St. Boniface, it's actually oh geez, I'm missing. I don't know if this is happening to you. Sometimes I miss the English word. It's a Stadtteil. It's a
You're forgetting your
um,
English.
I do. When you speak as much German,
Stadtteil, that's a town. What's a
no, it's
tile?
like just it's like a community. Let's just say it's a community. It's just a part of Winnipeg, St. Boniface. Yeah,
Oh, it's
so,
a suburb.
a suburb. Yeah, there you go.
That's
There
yeah,
you
there we
go.
go. We're there.
There you go. So yeah, played there. It was great. Actually, that was I mean back in the day. I remember going to my first camp. My first it was tier two of the MJHL, and I remember being 15 years old, 14 or 15, anyways. And I remember one of the coaches who was running the camp came to me and says, "Okay, Brad, because I was one of the youngest guys. You see that guy over there on the other team? He wants to beat you up. Are you going to fight him?"
Yeah.
So if it was the other kid that was my age. Skates over to the other guy, says the same thing. So it was basically programmed that we're gonna fight, and I remember that was my first actually a hockey fight. It was actually with the St. Boniface Saints in this camp, just being scared shitless,
And
taking off the
bullied right
puck.
into it from a coach.
Yeah, and if like I think back now, like just how
It used to be.
it's just like ridiculous. Yeah,
Well, I don't know
in
if you know who
in
Darcy
the sport.
Verot is, but
I don't.
when he came on and he was a fighter in the A and in the show and in Russia, he sent me this website of the Washington Capitals training camp fights from like back when he was there, like early 2000, late 90s. I don't know, I'm not sure when it was,
Yeah,
but he was fighting as much as he possibly could every shift, go out and fight
yeah,
in a training camp. That's just to get warmed up for the season, folks.
yeah, yeah. I'm just thankful now. Like I don't know, Wally, do you have kids?
I do. I have a 10 and 8-year-old. Yep.
Boys or girls or boys
Boy and a
and girls?
girl. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm
Like
coaching the under 13 boys in town here. We got our second exhibition game tonight against the
oh,
team that in the first one just smashed us 7-1. So
okay.
we're going to see
Yeah,
how she goes tonight. We got some work to do, it looks like,
yeah. Exactly. But I'm just really thankful also having a boy who plays hockey that it's not the way it used to be,
with the
when
fighting and getting, yeah.
oh with the fighting and the hazing
The hazing's the biggest one. The
and all
hazing,
that stuff.
I remember when I first made it into junior and I was hearing stories of some things that could go on. And
Mm,
like you hear about making all the rookies go in the bathroom of the bus naked with all their clothes tied together in a ball, and all these naked kids have to
yeah,
undo the clothes and get dressed before they could come out. And then like before that, I had on a buddy's dad that played for the Leafs back in the day, and he was telling me about what it was like in junior when he came up, and like I guess it would have been, I don't know, the 70s or 80s. Like they were hurting people in hazing events,
yeah,
and it was
yeah,
like stuff he remembers to this day of who he hates in the world, right? And
yeah.
you never forget that shit.
Yeah, like I don't know how you like I was always a guy, even when I was a veteran, wherever I was against that shit because I always thought how
Why
much
would
I
right?
hated it. And to be quite honest, my experience was it was always the like it would never be a star who would treat rookies, or for example, when we are in Germany, you know, you would see from time to time there would always be some imports who would handle or treat young Germans like shit. And I fucking always hated it. And I always remembered it. And I always,
And
especially
those
when I
and
was
those
over
kids
there,
don't forget it either.
always got
They
over
know
them.
who was good to them and who wasn't.
Yeah. And to be quite honest, as you say that, like one of the kids, for example, a really good friend of mine is actually Clark Breitkreutz, who plays in the second league. And so
I know
guys
that
like
name.
that, when my last couple of years when I was playing in Germany, meeting him, or for example, Matthias Niederberger was another one, everything. Every time I see Matthias, we're really friendly. And, you
Well, that,
know,
what's interesting is what actually spurred me on and got me back into the German ice hockey world
yeah,
again and chatting again. Because I have been very focused on British ice hockey.
yeah,
Because I had the best taste in my mouth after hockey from that. But
yeah,
was Philip Meikle, who played with me in Landshut, was one of those fourth line kids that we
yeah,
went to the finals. There's an article about him being the top 100. I think it's Erding. I might be wrong. I've talked to
yeah,
too many people, but top 100 athletes from his town, and in the article, how it came up was that he said I was one of the biggest influences in his career, and
yeah,
like when it's 15 years later and you hear that, man, that can mean a lot, but that's a
yeah,
lot better to hear than if you hazed a guy and he's writing that you're the biggest piece of shit he's ever
yeah.
played with.
Yeah, exactly. And that, like, I mean, to be quite honest, like, Wally, like in the DEL, like I was a third liner. Like I was in journey, like not a journeyman. Like I was a every day played every game. But I wasn't a star or whatever. But these relationships have really helped me now because whenever it seems to be like some kind of game or whatever, especially from the young Germans who are actually retiring now, who I actually played with my last couple of years. I get these invites, and actually, it's always a blast. I was actually in a game a couple of weeks ago for a kid I played with in Duisburg my very last year named Etienne Renkevitz, and yeah, shit like that. I mean, what comes around goes around, I guess, right? And the guys,
That's very true.
uh,
It's very true. And yeah, like for when you look back on my career, I think managers and coaches maybe didn't always get me and what I was trying to do for the team. But I mean, I've been back now for 7 seasons, I think, and I've been invited back from my teammates 7 times. So,
yeah, yeah,
right?
there you go.
Yeah.
My first year actually in my first 2 years, like I was so when I went to University of Manitoba, then I got a training camp offer to go to the Manitoba Moose in the IHL, and from that camp, so they cut me, but a scout from Sweden actually saw me, and that's where I got my contract offer to go to Sweden. But I actually had driven. Um, I had driven with a buddy of mine who was playing for the Dayton Bombers at the time, and his name was Troy Christensen.
The
And
Daytona Beach Bombers, small world. I played there. Went to the
yeah,
finals. Yeah.
so I actually, after getting, after playing in the preseason with the Moose, I drove down with him to Dayton, stayed one night in Chicago. So I don't know, it was like 30 hours or whatever, complete driving, whatever it was from Winnipeg. I got there, and that night actually got a contract offer to go to Sweden, which meant my flight was leaving 2 days later from Winnipeg to Toronto, and from Toronto to Stockholm. And then on the ice, then I had a week tryout. So that was actually my foray into, you know, pro hockey in North America, because I knew I was too small. I would never make it anyways. So
Well, when you said you were a third liner in the DL, you played forward and D, didn't you?
no, just my last year. My last year in Kassel, I played the first half of the season. I played as a forward, but that I mean, Stefan Richer, who wasn't my biggest fan. I didn't play. He tried to buy me out actually after my the last year of my contract, as I signed a 3-year deal in Kassel, and we moved back to the DL. He wanted to buy me out, and I said, "Sure, Rich, no problem. Um, pay me my money, and I'll go. I have no problem." But they didn't want to pay out the salary, so yeah, he made me for the first half of the year. I played on the fourth line right wing for the Kassel
Right.
Huskies, and
But
actually
you were
I went
normally
to
defense, right?
I
That's
was
what
normally a defenseman. Yeah,
yeah, I'd stay at home, fifth, sixth D man, mucking it up.
yeah, yeah. You could say that
But
for
then
sure.
when you're in the third league, you're running amok, putting up points.
Yeah, I mean, I did have every now and then I had a cup of coffee playing on a second line power play unit.
Yeah.
But yeah, for
You have to
the
be on
most
power
part,
plays to put up
yeah,
points. I mean,
yeah.
it's really the only
But I
way
mean,
it
I
happens.
played in the DEL. I had like some really good D partners. I played with Chad Allen and Phil Von Stefanelli. Guy Lahou was another D partner of
Gila, who
mine.
wasn't he on that Castle team too?
He was on that Castle team, and he was
Ugh,
actually my D partner.
puke. Yeah.
Tough as tough as nails, that
You
guy.
guys, well, when you look at how like championship teams are built, I always say it's like when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And
Yeah,
you guys had a bunch of tough dudes on that team. Like you guys weren't the, as you could call, the high budget prima donna type. You guys were the big budget, but also like to muck it up too, right?
yeah, we had a lot of guys who could do that as well. That is true. That is true.
And
Yeah.
that one guy that really did her that playoffs, I think he had like a goal a game, was that McNeil. He was
You know what? That we've gone this long, and I haven't mentioned him. He's actually to this
right.
day one of my best friends. Like he lives in Louisiana now, and me and him, we ran a muck and castle on a weekly basis, and
Yes. Hmm.
I got to see him actually last year at one of these. I think what do you call it in England? In Germany,
Testimonials.
in Germany, you say an Abschiedsspiel. So actually, one of the
That's the
kids.
retirement game, right?
Yeah, and in Kassel, there was a big retirement game last year for three guys from that, well, the two guys from that team, Manuel Klinge and Michael Christ, and actually McNeil actually then came afterwards to stay with me. But we were, to this day, we're still actually really, really tight, and we talk maybe once a month. Like it was me, him, and Alex Levitt. We ran a lot with Alex Levitt. Love that kid.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
Levy?
Oh,
You
he's
know,
been in the shed. If you haven't caught up with the 300 and something episodes, he's been on a couple times.
well,
Um, I had him on, and he's a dandy. And then I also had him on with his Ravensburg Tower Stars fellas that won the championship there after us.
yeah. We actually, um, after I think it was after the second
They say
after
shed guys know shed guys. That's all I'd say. I bet you this McNeil's a shed guy too.
oh well, for sure. We flew a weekend down to Houston to go visit Levia, me and McNeil, and
That's
actually
hockey.
that turned out to be an absolute circus. And so
I
I
can't
literally
imagine. Yeah.
I flew on a Thursday, flew to Houston from Frankfurt to Houston, direct flight, and then we're all baseball fans, so we watched a couple games and just got absolutely puddled actually for 3 nights in a row, and then flew back took the red eye on Sunday back to Germany. It was just a
Um, yeah,
nice week.
I could imagine. Levy's a dandy for sure.
Levy is beautiful. Yeah.
So I guess yeah, we've already been talking a while. We could go for a while, but so I was curious how you ended up going to Sweden, out of the University of Manitoba, and why you didn't go to NCAA.
Okay,
Because
so
you scored 105 points and were a second team All-Star in a junior league in Canada back then. Normally that's a scholarship.
I did go to I went to University of North Dakota when I was 18. But looking back, if I would have stayed at UND, I would have won 2 national championships in my junior and senior year. But I was so immature as an 18-year-old, and I was so homesick that I packed it in. Gino Gasparini was the coach. I had a really good training camp, and I got sat my first 2 games as an 18-year-old, and I just could not handle not playing. I just could not handle it, and I threw it all away. Went back to, I said, "Fuck it, I'm going home." Um, Went back home. Then I played my 19-year-old year in the MJHL. Skipped my last year junior. Went to the University of Manitoba. But
Yeah.
I mean, looking back, I mean, I was super, like I was. You know, it's funny. I say to my boy all the time. You know, he's 15, but I feel like he's an 8-year-old. You know, I see my daughter. My daughter's 18, and you know, she's like an adult, and yet I would. God, seriously, I was exactly like my boy. I just could not handle it. Was immature as an 18-year-old, and just could not handle not playing. So I went back, and then that's when I went to the University of Manitoba.
Well,
Um,
it'd be hard at 18 years old when all you want to do is play hockey, and then the hockey you're getting is not playing, right?
yeah.
Hmm.
It was tough too, staying disciplined, right? You go to the NCAA and you have the weekend, you have the keg parties, and then you have every single day is a buffet. So I basically ate myself out of the NCAA when I packed the bags to go back to
I tried to.
when I packed my bags to drive to go back to before I was going back, actually, I got a call from the Moose Jaw Warriors to come to
What school was it you were at?
University of North Dakota.
That was
Waisu.
that, and were they in the new barn then too, or that was
No,
before
no,
that?
it was the old barn. It was the old barn.
Yeah.
But
But
that
yeah,
year they
no, the
had,
buffet's a thing. The
yeah,
dorms at Western Michigan was a buffet all day, every day. And we had unlimited meal plans. So they make
yeah,
you go work out all day, all morning, and then make you go to practice to skate the shit out of you. And then they're like, there's the buffet, time to get to eating. And boy, you could eat.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I really because that year when I went back, then when I quit and went back, I was so out of shape. And then I over the summer, then I really got in good shape for my 19-year-old year. And then I just, you know, my coach that was 16 was then with the University of Manitoba, and it just seemed like a good fit. And I knew they had you know, the World University Games were coming up the following year. And I figured I would have a chance to make that team, Team Canada, which absolute highlight of the career. And plug like me being able to play for the national team was, um,
That's
that was
pretty
great.
cool to play for Team Canada, right? And no matter
Yeah.
what it is, my only opportunity, which till I started talking in my shed, I actually forgot I did this. But I played for Team Canada in roller hockey, and it's still playing for Team Canada, right?
Me too. Did you play the WHF or the FIRS?
Oh geez, I don't even know what it's called, man.
It's
I
a
was
kid.
I was like 15,
Yeah,
15 or 16.
yeah. I got to do that too. But that was a blast, man. Like that
Oh,
was.
yeah, man. The jersey I have, it looks like it's from like the Summit series in the 70s. And to think that's the jerseys they gave us is pretty cool.
But like yeah, like you say, I mean, anytime you got to do that, it was great. It
Yeah.
was awesome.
How'd it go playing for Team Canada? Did you win it?
We finished. So there was a double IHF. That was right before they had the RHI and stuff like that. But we played. So it was basically at that time. It was, you know, whoever would win like the tournament and win like a regional tournament, then would get to represent Canada. So it was basically it was me and all of my buddies from Winnipeg, like my best friends. And that summer,
That's fun.
actually was supposed to go to camp with our national teams. Back in the day they had the Canadian national team. I was supposed to go to camp.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the best decisions I made was, Andy Murray was the coach at the time, and I said, no, I'm going to go with my buddies. And I knew I don't think I would have made the team anyways, but I basically threw that in the garbage anyways, because I was like, this is a chance of a lifetime to basically to go play inline hockey with the national team with my best buddies and just get absolutely sewered every single night in Zellemsee, Austria.
Mm.
And then we ended up finishing second place. We lost in the gold medal game to the States, who were loaded. And
Yeah,
then the
yours is a
following
bit
year,
different than mine. Mine was in Kitchener, Ontario, 15 minutes from my hometown, playing for Canada. And we were playing like all the other countries. And then actually they ended up at a party. With there was a big high school party at one of my buddy's houses from Elmira. And like a big party, like ones you'd make movies about. And all the teams after we played against each other did come to that party. It was wild.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Roller hockey is fun though, and I find that playing 4-on-4 on roller blades where you can't turn as fast, you can't shimmy shake as quickly. I found it opened up my vision of the game. I found ways to make 2-on-1s creatively than the normal 5-on-5, and you can play ice hockey your whole life and it's always 5-on-5 and you're always chipping it in, chipping it out. 4-on-4 roller hockey, it's totally different and opens up your eyes.
yeah, yeah. I quit though. Like, I mean, as soon as I turned pro, then
I did
I
too.
found it to be too dangerous. It was like the last
Yeah,
thing I wanted to do.
when hockey got too serious, it was middle of college was when I
Yeah.
stopped. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. So you go to Sweden. What'd you think of Sweden?
Well, so yeah, as I mentioned, after I go to Sweden, and that actually might be the biggest regret I have in my whole career, was that year in Sweden, because I remember being, like I told you, I was immature, and I was immature too as a 20-year-old, but I was so homesick for Winnipeg, and I was living in Sweden. It was my first year pro. It felt like I was a millionaire because I was making good money in the second league in Sweden. And I mean, if you've ever been to Sweden, Swedish women, I was young, I was single, I was a pro.
Yes.
People knew me in the city. Like this,
Mhm.
the team now is actually in the Swedish elite league. I
And
mean,
if you're that in good a shape at 48, I wonder what you were like in your 20s.
so like I really, really ran amok in Sweden. Like
Well, I
Sweden,
can see how strong you are in your neck right now and your neck muscles. What do
like
you, how much are you working out?
stop it. Like I say, so I've been single since January, right? It's amazing what splitting from the X will do to your fitness and the discipline when it comes to working out. Yeah, so I like to work out on a daily basis.
I understand. I'm more dedicated into making sure I have time for the shed on a daily basis.
That's good. But that year in Sweden, so
You would
our
have had a time.
schedule.
So you're the
Oh,
only Canadian too, eh? And
I'm,
like
I'm, I'm the only Canadian. There's two imports there.
everybody else
I'm
is blonde, and then you're this other
and
guy.
and, and I was like the youngest on the team. Well, a couple of the Swedes are a little bit younger than me, but I was like, I'm one of the youngest. So we would play on Wednesdays and we would play on Sundays. But listen to this: Saturdays were off. So Friday we would have an early afternoon practice,
And then you're
and
off till the Sunday game.
so Friday nights were an absolute shit show and I had money, right? I had money that like, and I was honest to God, it wasn't a lot. If you look back now, it wasn't a lot of money, but I played it up that year. Like honestly, if you would have met me, you would have thought I was a millionaire. The way I was, I didn't care. I don't think I saved. I saved like probably a couple hundred girls the whole year, but I was living it up to the point. Like honest to God, after that year, I thought to myself, I need to calm down. I need a girlfriend, and this needs to stop. So I go to Germany the very next. So the next, I was really homesick the whole year, which, like I said, like I wish I would have enjoyed that year because Sweden is awesome and my teammates were awesome and it was such a good time. But I couldn't help with being homesick the whole time. And then the next year, so I was like, then I wanted to go to Germany because I knew there was a lot of Canadians there. And the first weekend I was in Germany, I met a Swede. The next weekend I met my German wife, and after the year we got married in Vegas, and yeah. But
Uh,
that first year in Germany as well, when I was telling you about there was three older Canadian guys, and I mean that really opened up my eyes because I was 22 then when I went to Germany for my first year, and these three guys, three wily veterans, and these cats, took care of me. And after every single road game, they were smoking weed. And uh, that
yeah.
first year in Germany was absolutely probably a lot of my best stories were probably from that year alone. That year, when I went to Germany, at the time, the owner, every time you would get a paycheck, you wouldn't get the paycheck deposited to your account. You actually would get a check. So you would actually go to the rink on payday, and the whole board would be sitting in front of you and basically telling you, okay, you've had a good month, really good. Here's your paycheck, or ripping into you because yeah, you're playing shitty. You shouldn't get like
And would
enough.
they pay you all the money or no?
I didn't get my last paycheck, and it was my first year in Germany, so I sued them. I was like, fuck, I
How'd you
didn't get
know how to sue them and stuff?
because the German girl who I hooked up the second week that I was in Germany with, um, her mother actually worked for a lawyer's firm.
And that's how you do it because I was wondering, like, so if a team ever screwed me, which teams would screw some players back in the day, and I always thought, well, they're gonna do this because they don't think you're gonna actually fight it. And
Yeah.
there would be times I'd be thinking, I'd be like, so if they actually stop paying me and I have to like do this, it's like, how would I even go about it? You know?
So she told me, so I had that benefit that, okay, whatever you do when you're here in Germany, you need a Rechtsschutzversicherung, yeah, lawyer's insurance. And I'd fucking never heard of lawyer's insurance, but I was like, well, if you say I need it, then I guess I need it. So I'll get it. And sure enough, that year, we like half the team got kicked out and replaced, and we had then, yeah, I didn't get my last paycheck, and yeah, I sued them, and I was like the only guy to sue them, but we got the money. But
Right.
that was actually good that I had that, because then a couple of years later in
Because then the lawyer's insurance covered
oh
you that paid for them to do that
yeah.
work.
Yeah, but at the time too, you would kind of get black marked, right? Because then the owners would talk to each other and oh, they sued me, and
Yeah.
I guess they think they would just get away with it, especially with a young Canadian. And with me, that wasn't the case because I had my lawyer's insurance. But anyways, the same thing happened. So the next year, I play in Radingen, and then I go to. I signed late. But I played for them and was all right. And then the following year, I signed with a team called Schalke 04, Schalke 04, and they were supposed to have Lufthansa as a sponsor, and they handpicked a team from like all the best players from the Oberliga. I think it was called the West and the Third League, and we all get there, and after 6 games, we went broke. So no paycheck, sued them.
This is your second year,
This is my third year. The
but
second
second year
year,
in Germany. No.
The second year in Germany, I was in Ratingen, and in Ratingen, I lived in a hotel the whole year with my new wife at 21.
Oh, sorry, that's the Ice Aliens. Good
The
name,
Iranian
guys.
ice aliens. Yeah,
One guy you played with there, is Luigi Calci, who was my captain in Hellbrown.
yeah. Good hands, Lou. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we to be quite honest, that year, to be honest, is probably one of my least favorite years in ice hockey because there was such a disparity between the German players. Most of them were old players from the DEG, the Düsseldorfer EG, and younger imports, with me being one of them. And I mean, to be quite honest, it was a talented team, but that actually, of all the years, was probably my least favorite year of ice hockey, to be quite honest with you. I could not wait to leave. So the next year I was happy to go to Schalke. We go bankrupt after 6 games. So now, you know, I've experienced this now twice. Like Gelsenkirchen goes bankrupt, and then I actually, we're young. I was young. Wasn't making a lot of money. So then, I go to Erfurt. And Erfurt was the coach there was Corrado Mikolev. And Corrado Mikolev, I actually asked him because at the time, like I didn't have a lot of money, and I was like, "Look, Corrado, please tell me if I'm going to go to your team. Please tell me I'm going to get paid the money that I'm signed for." And so Brad, 100%, like hand in the fire, no worries. I got there, no money. The first 3 months I was there, got no money, and at the time, actually, the lawyer I actually had used from Duisburg, actually Gelsenkirchen. So Gelsenkirchen, actually forgot to tell you this one. Gelsenkirchen goes bankrupt, and the owner basically says, "Okay, I'm just not the owner anymore." He just leaves. So there was nobody to there
Try
was
and get the
nobody
money from.
yeah, there was nobody to get the money from. And for even worse, none of the players could leave to another team because in Germany you all have players cards. So actually me and a guy named Mark Garth actually went through a lawyer, and we became the official president and vice president of the Gelsenkirchen. All we did was sign the player contract so the players could leave. And this same lawyer, then I hired him in Erfurt. So one day in Erfurt, I was like, the lawyer's name is a famous German lawyer called Norbert Fiedel. We hadn't been paid then in Erfurt for 3 months, and it was like, so I had a meeting with the German guys and I said, "Guys, like what are we doing here? We haven't been paid for 3 months." And this guy actually, I said, "Let's all get together. Let's get this lawyer. I know him from the like earlier in Gelsenkirchen." The guy said, "Yeah, okay, let's do it." We do it. So it came to a head to a game in Erfurt where the lawyer who I had basically represented the whole team and went to the ownership and said, "Listen, unless you guys come up with this amount of money in cash before the game, the team's not playing tonight." And of course, they had sponsors and shit like that. And like, honest to God, like from a mafia movie, they came in with
Bags
I
of
guess
money.
yeah, okay, we're in the third league, so
It
it was
wasn't that
more
much money, but it was enough to get everybody paid.
yeah. So because the goal was to get everybody paid so that you only had a 3 month gap when the team went bankrupt that the German government could pay for you. Yeah. So, but yeah,
It's
man. I
it's
mean,
interesting that with all that going on in your first couple of years in Germany that you stuck her out this long. Like, because some people don't get paid their first year or two, and then they're like, okay, this isn't for me.
yeah, yeah. No, for me though, like I mean, I am. So I had a German wife, and actually going for that tryout that year before I went to Erfurt to Landshut, I knew that if I went to Landshut, I knew things would turn around. I knew I'd be getting my German pass, and once I got my German pass, then
And so you got your German pass after like 4 years. So that means you didn't get it through heritage. You got it through marriage.
go through marriage. Yeah.
So you get rid of your Canadian then.
I did, unfortunately. That was after like I met my wife the second weekend I came to Germany. I told you my year in Sweden, like it was I really had that feeling after my first year in Sweden that I really, really needed to calm down and settle down a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was so stupid looking back on it now. But
Yeah.
yeah, so after the year, we ended up getting married in Vegas. after my year in Duisburg, and then yeah, so then I got my pass right before, and then of course then Ingolstadt signed me with the German pass. But yeah, that was a bitter day. Bitter. I should say it was a bitter day because I was happy, right? Because I went from making 16,000 euros,
Yeah.
basically tripling my salary.
Just
Um,
by getting a passport.
yeah, and then jumping to the DEL. So and then it was
There's another guy though that you probably didn't find with your research team that I know that you know, and this is from your Erfurt days. Steve Pepe.
yeah, yeah.
Because he set up shop in Bietigheim. He was there like coaching the kids when I was there.
Steve Pepin was a good guy. He had some good stories too. Did he ever Steve Pepin told me a story about his first year in Germany where because I was telling him about how rough it was my first year, and I guess he didn't have a washing machine. He couldn't speak German. He couldn't speak English.
Right, because he's
But,
French.
but he was a pretty funny guy. Yeah, I like Steve. Steve was a good dude. Do you know what he's doing
It's
now?
in oh I don't now, but he was coaching like kids in Bietigheim when I was there or something, right? Like he was in
Yeah,
Bietigheim and I knew him my whole 4 years there. But yeah, it's all the hockey guys that get scattered around the world when they go to play hockey and then find love and then they're there for the rest of their lives is there's hockey guys everywhere.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my hockey guys now are so I've gotten I play golf now basically religiously, and my hockey guys now are my golf guys. Although this coming weekend I'm gonna go hook up with a few hockey guys in Dusseldorf, but
Gosh, sounds fun.
um, yeah, um,
I just plan trips to the shed and then it makes me feel like part of hockey again and I can continue on with normal family life and real world and all that fun stuff, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
So then you go to Landshut and what a spot that is. Did they
Yeah,
have the duelt going on when you were there? That's like the fair
even
type deal.
but even better. That year I was there was the summer of Landshuter Hochzeit, and I don't know
The
if you
one
know
that's
that.
only so many years, right?
Every fourth year is the Landshut Hochzeit, and that's where they basically set up stands through the Altstadt, through the downtown, and you
That's
go
the
there
old town, folks, the old stat.
and you go on the bleachers and you drink beer. That's what you do.
Right.
And
I excel at that. I fit in Germany.
yeah, I wasn't too bad at it either, to be honest with you. I mean, I like honest to God, that year in Landshut was amazing. I mean, I heard
Well, and you'd
actually
been through it a bit,
yeah,
right? Those first
yeah,
few years in Germany, you'd been through some money stuff. You've been playing in the third league, but then you get to Landshut and like that's a hockey town, and then you're kind of in the center of things in the third league, and your team's winning and you're having fun, and and then you're with good dudes, and it makes hockey fun. And I know exactly where you're coming from because that's what it did for me.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But
But yeah, that I remember leaving Landshut and Hammer and the boys were like, "You got to come to that one you're talking about, the one that's every 4 years." And he's like, "You won't believe it," right?
yeah, I mean, lots of fun. Like
Right.
Ingolstadt was great too. I mean, you had guys in Landshut, the young Germans, and Ingolstadt. There's another cat that I just love hanging around with, even to this day. His name's Alexander Bolacek. He's actually now a ref in the DEL, and this kid. I mean, the young Germans were always the funnest guys to hang around with. Yeah, like in Landshut, it was Hundi and
And
Geige
they're
and
still going all night where the older fellas have their families and kids, and then you're
yeah,
a young import and you're like, I just want to go out and have some fun. Like, let's rock, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Your Ingolstadt time. Watch your toes. I'm gonna drop some names here for the small hockey world. Obviously, you had Gunther Oswald, Marco Sturm, who's a Landshut fella,
Yep.
Anton Promisberger,
Yep.
duck feet. He would always put the heels together and break up
Yep.
2-on-1s. Mikael
Big kick.
Hackert, my centerman from Hellbron, and Alexander Gentze, Sasha, they'd call him.
Yeah. Yeah. So Michael Hackert, one of the
He's a,
most talented players I ever played with.
he's a player. He was my centerman in Hellbron.
Um, I all like when I think back, like the years and years that I played in the DEL, when I think back, okay, some of the guys who, maybe coulda, woulda played in the NHL, he's one of them. And he did sign in Detroit, but he I like for the German guys playing in the AHL, why would you play in the AHL when you can play in the DEL and you just can't stomach it out. Another guy who's like that. Now, okay, I never played with him, but I played against him my last couple of years, and he's still playing now. A guy who plays in Düsseldorf is Philip Gugula.
Oh yeah, I
Uh,
know that name too. But
just
it's true though. It's like it's hard to stick it out in the AHL when you could be making significantly less money than you would being at home in the DL, better fans, better atmosphere,
better
instead of
lifestyle.
grinding it out on a bus, for less money just for the chance. And it's
Yeah,
like you only get so many years, and for you to be the star in your home country seems like it'd be pretty fun too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sasha Genza, really good player, really good guy. Actually, I played a little bit with him that year. That first year in the DEL, I played a little bit
So
with
he
Sasha.
was the Alta Aya in Bietigheim when I played with him.
Yeah,
He was old balls done in the DL about 42, 43, and he was just a good dude, worked hard, showed up every day and played hard, right?
yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, so Ingolstadt was good to you then, eh?
Awesome. Loved it. Actually, I had the last few years we actually had I had the opportunity. We had actually there was a I guess the partner city for Ingolstadt is actually Moscow, if you can believe it. And a few years back, they arranged it a home and home for Ingolstadt All Stars against the Moscow All Stars. And so I wasn't good enough. I didn't make the home team, but actually for the road trip to Moscow, I made the lineup. And that trip, my friend, was an absolute circus going to
You
Moscow.
went to for a road trip to Moscow with
We
a
went to
team from
Moscow.
Ingolstadt.
Old timers team, yeah.
Jeepers
And
creepers. That's gonna be an old timers trip to remember.
they I remember being so that for every meal we would get a shot of vodka. And that night before we played, the next day we had a game at I think it was like 7 p.m. We played on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday actually we had a they actually took us. And it's funny we had like a VIP trip through the Kremlin. It was ridiculous. So those big doors when you see um
Like
old
getting
Vladimir.
Moscow, you're going right into the real deal to check it all
Yeah,
out.
they took us through a VIP tour of the Kremlin. So whenever I see old Vladimir going through those big doors and stuff, I'm like,
I've been there.
I've actually been in that room. Like I was actually in that room. But that trip, I got so drunk the night before. I actually showed up for breakfast at 7 a.m. And actually, to be honest, I kind of regretted it because everything was all expense paid, and I kind of took advantage of the situation. I kind of regret getting so drunk the night before, but I mean, it was a blast. About Moscow,
You
Moscow
can't,
was great.
yeah, you can't regret that stuff. Those things happen. You just gotta, you work hard, you play hard, you see what
Yeah,
happens, right?
yeah. And then they had like a couple of years later, there was actually a game. It was called the Ingolstadt Legends game. Again, I'm guessing probably 40 guys before me probably said no, and eventually I got the call. But that was also cool. But that was basically with most of the guys from the team that won the championship, because they did win the championship, I guess 5 or 6 years later. They eventually won a championship. It was most of those guys. It wasn't that many guys from my era that were
Right.
there.
Well, winning changes everything. It changes everything for the
Yeah,
history, and like those are people they remember, are the people that got her done, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's pretty neat. You get to do all that shit though. That's a lot more exciting than the
yeah,
old timers around here.
yeah. I mean, it was like Ingolstadt too. Like Ingolstadt was the perfect place for me because it wasn't. Like, to be quite honest, the way I lived and partied with my teammates, like I loved like not a super professional kind, like the way it is now. I don't think I could have ever played because it's just
I
everything.
understand. I totally understand what you're saying right
And
now.
like my I'll give you an example. We played in English that second year we were in the DEL. We actually overachieved. We actually ended up finishing second in the league standings, and we beat Nuremberg in the quarterfinals. And we actually go to Berlin, and Berlin at the time were a juggernaut. We basically knew they were gonna like that team in Berlin right now in Berlin, like five or six guys from that team. Their numbers are up in the rafters, right?
Hmm.
But anyways, that year we play against Berlin in the semifinals. Of course, we're down 2-0. We go to back to Berlin in that third game. We're gonna lose. Like we know we're gonna lose, but it's a party atmosphere. And we had a doctor at the time who also liked to get into it. And 5 minutes left to go in the game. We're down 5-1 in the third game. I had actually already booked flights to go to Miami 2 days later. Um, Fucking Sven Felski high sticks me in the face, and I'm just gushing blood.
Yeah.
5 minutes to go before the end of the season. We're down 5-1. So this young Berlin doctor runs out on the ice, takes me back to the to the medical room, and he puts on his gloves, really professional, pulls out the mask, is ready to stitch me up, and our doctor comes in, and our doctor is
In one.
shit faced, absolutely shit faced. He sees me there, and he's like, Brad, you're my guy. Who is this? I've got this. I'm going to take care of
Oh
you.
no.
So the young Berlin doctor looks at me, and he looks at our doctor, and he's like, it's your call. Please stop. You like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, that's my guy. Yeah. Like,
That's your guy. You got to stick with your guy.
yeah. So my guy comes in. So I basically say, nah, kid, it's all right. He'll take it. And the Berlin doctor sees what's going on. He's like, are you sure? I'm sure. And the doctor pulls out a staple gun and starts fucking stapling my face. Buck, 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 buck. And he missed the cut. So he gave me two staples on the cut and two staples on the side of my
He
face.
just
Like,
missed a bit.
yeah, like just it's an absolute circus. And I was like, oh man. And then a couple days later, I flew to the US, and like they asked me at the customs if I was a gang member, because I just looked so ridiculous. I had two staples here, and a
Staples.
staple here, and a staple here. And it's like, no,
No,
no.
just a hockey player in the
Just,
wrong
just a
spot.
hockey player, and my doctor liked getting after it a little bit. He liked this rye.
Oh
And
man, some of those.
like
So you did play a bunch in the third league, and I always found it interesting some of the stories that could go on in Germany of like there are no doctors around, there's no trainers, there's nobody that if something happens in practice, there's nobody there to help. It's almost like the feeling where, man, I'm in the coast. It's like I'm in Germany, It's like there can be some wild stories of what goes on, right?
the Kabina Fest back in the third league were nuts. Like looking back at some of the shit that actually happened in some of the Kabina Fests I was in.
Cabina
Uh,
fests are fun, man.
yeah, but like back in the third league, back in the day, like when I played, that would never ever happen now. Like guys would have went to jail. Like
Right.
literally,
Just taking
that's
it too far.
taking it way too far.
Way too
And
far. I found it interesting that there's a age bracket there. I would say it's before cell phones, social media,
yeah,
before any of that. There's a bunch, there's an age group there that are more hesitant to come to the shed. And I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what they've done, but there's an age group there that get real nervous about telling stories.
yeah. Well, to be quite honest, when you called me, I started like thinking, what can I tell that story? I don't know.
Well, and then everybody's got to know where they're at and what they can tell now, right? And it's
But
like,
like for me now, I'm single, but
right. But you
like
can't, you
the
don't
last
throw anybody under the bus. You're a good
the last
teammate, right? And that's just the way it is. And you tell your stories, and that's the shed, right?
yeah, yeah,
That's how it all works, though, is everybody knows where they're at. I've done a lot of these, and I have no editing team. Um, Never really has it happened that I have to cut anything out because everybody knows where they're at. They know that people are gonna listen, but they're just talking to me and we're having fun, and then like everybody knows
yeah,
what we're doing, right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
But yeah, things used to get way more carried away than they do now.
It's great. I think what you do, Wally, is actually great. Like I really enjoy it. Like I only came aware of your podcast like a couple of weeks ago, and to be
Well, I don't
honest
have
with
a
you,
marketing team, right? I just have Jake in
yeah.
Manchester, but that's
But
it.
I saw that you interviewed Hammer, and actually another interesting interview was okay. Calvin Elfring and Teeple. So I never played with Elfie, and I never played with Teeple. Like, but of course, in like I knew who they were, and actually Elfring more or less did the same thing I did. Like he started really down low. We played against each other when he was in Bad Aibling, and it's funny. I never played with the guy, but because the German hockey is so small, we actually somehow and we're obviously not
Right.
best
But
buddies. We know
you
about the
have
galaxy,
you know each other, and like it's like that's how this all works. Is like it's like when
yeah,
we started chatting, it's like, are you Brent? And I'm like, yeah, were you from those Huskies? And like we do remember each other, like um the battles you go through, they can get quite serious when it's a series or when you're the top two dogs fighting it out to see who's the best. I mean, you don't forget that shit.
yeah, true. That is true, my friend.
Just like Alex Levitt, that punk that would just follow me around and beat me in scoring in every league I played in. Thanks, buddy.
You,
Thanks for being around.
Levy was a guy, um, always tarps off, and I
And he
loved
should
him.
be. Good for him.
Yeah, loved him. Actually, and him actually, I'll always remember too his wife Lindsay because they, um, she was actually one of the only English wives who I can remember through the years who actually made sure that she was like, okay, I'm in Germany. I'm going to try to learn German. And I mean, at the time, my wife and myself really, really, really respected that. Yeah. And
And then
yeah,
you should, yeah.
I mean, I only played with Levy 2 seasons. Was it maybe just one season? Maybe it was just one season,
Just the
but
DL season.
yeah, yeah. But I love the kid. Love
Oh
the kid.
yeah.
We went to Houston after the season, and I'll talk to him maybe every couple of years. We'll chat because yeah, like I mentioned earlier, me and Sean McNeil, we went and visited him a few years back. But
Well,
yeah,
here's one that played on your team then. So we're just jumping around. We got to be done soon. I get back to the real world. But that year you're in Kassel, I'm in Landshut.
yeah,
Um, both teams are great. The guy that led the league in scoring by a mile. I watched him play. I couldn't believe what I was watching. He didn't care if his team got scored on. He would literally cherry pick, play offense, try and score in the D zone. He would clearly not care, and as they would go in and score, and he would just go to the bench like whatever. Then you guys signed him to the DL. He had 99 points or something that year in the second league. That Bartek, that guy dominated the second league. And then I couldn't believe he went to the DL because I watched him play. He literally didn't care if his team got scored on. Did it improve when he went to the DL and had different coaches?
uh, Smarty, Smarty Bartek. Um, Rocket Wife. Got to give Smarty his.
Attaboy. Good work, kid.
He did well.
Yeah.
You know what? I got along with him. I don't know why.
He seemed like a guy I could get along with. I just found him really humorous when like I'm playing
Yeah.
for Landshut and
Oh
he's gonna
yeah.
let the ice hockey god just go by him and score. And
I
he's
mean,
gonna be like, well, that's not my fault. I don't care. I'm gonna get 99 points this year.
yeah, like he was super talented, right?
Oh,
Slow back at I mean, you could see how strong and powerful he was. Um, but yeah, like he's a guy you look at him and like that he probably should have been playing in the NHL. Like he was that good and that
if
strong.
he could put it all, if he cared both ends of the ice.
Yeah, yeah, but he
He
really
was a
was.
player. I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
um, so I guess then, yeah, we got all the castle stuff done with. We don't need to talk about that anymore. You guys were better. The only guy we haven't talked about yet that I thought was the best face-off guy I ever saw in my
Hugo?
life, Hugo.
Yeah,
Hugo Boisvert, which would use a wooden stick and then just like he would be breaking people's sticks on face-offs all the time.
yeah.
He
As
won
good,
every face-off. You couldn't beat him.
as good offensively as he was defensively.
Yeah.
Um, just a super super good guy. His wife
And a
Kim,
competitor.
also super. And actually, to be quite honest with you, I'm so happy for them how it's worked out for them because I mean, he's paid his dues. He played in he coached in the second league as an assistant coach, and then he I guess he got to know Joe Gibson Castle, who's also a really really good dude. Um, and then he gets a shot to be the GM, and really really happy. He's done a really good job. And to be quite honest with you, that guy, he's as meticulous as he was as a player playing center in the second league, and also a great guy. I love to get after it, and
Oh, I could tell he was a guy. He was a gamer.
yeah, love to get after it. Great guy. He's as meticulous as that is. He's in his job now, and actually, I had the opportunity to. So last year there was this. I told you this Abschiedsspiel from Michael Christ and Manuel Klinga, and of course he was there as well. And I ended up staying a night with. It was me, McNeil, and Hugo. And yeah, we got after reminiscing of the stories, but his dog, his dog is you come into his house and his dog has to have sex with your leg, and it is nonstop, and it is
Just
something
humps it.
that
Just a horny dog.
the dog really really likes to get after it, but that's
Hmm. Right.
among all the other things, that's maybe the only weaknesses for Hugo is that I wish he
That's his only flaw is that his dog
the,
likes to hump.
his dog Charlie, and they love his dog
Charlie.
Charlie, but Charlie really likes to get after it. But
Right.
yeah, no,
Well, Charlie,
really
your
good.
old man could sure take face-offs.
Yeah, yeah,
Holy moly. Just like you like to hump, that was him on a face-off, right?
exactly, exactly.
It is interesting when you watch it and then you get into like an actual series of hockey against a team and every D zone they'd put him out and you're like, well, we can't win this face-off, so we better get ready
Yeah,
to forecheck.
yeah, I'm just strong. I mean, as strong defensively as he was offensively, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
he really worked together with Sean McNeil. I mean, those two were great. They played together for a long, long time. Really, really good buddies, and
it's good to be buddies
um,
with guys you run amok with. Makes you better.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Better keep going. After Kassel and the DL, you go to Herner or whatever, play with McNeil.
yeah,
I imagine
yeah,
there's some money there if McNeil's playing. But then to finish it off, your last year's in Duisburg, and
yeah.
you play with a fella that mucked it up with me in Bietigheim for about 4 games, Alexander Selivanov.
Sally, yeah. So
What a
that
dude he is, eh?
um, great guy, hilarious. Um,
Hilarious.
like I mean, that year, we like that was a year where the goal was to move up to the second league, and I, our coach was a bit of a. I mean, we were in the third league. Like there was me, there was him. Anton Batter was there, and to be quite honest, I was kind of for my last year, I actually signed a 2-year deal. I signed a 2-year deal, so it was supposed to be that year and one more year. But the following year in the training camp, I could not stand the coach anymore. So I said, "Oh, my knee's hurting," because I did have the meniscus surgery. I said, and then I said, "Check, please, I'm out of here." Like I just could not deal with it. And I actually walked off the ice. Like it was the second practice in
The
in
next
the
year.
following run, and that was it. But anyways, yeah, Selly. So Selly comes to us because the coach was bitching and complaining because he signed a little bit late that he didn't get an import to sign on his own. So he signed Salavana. Salavana comes to us. And of course, Selly, everybody's expecting, okay, Selly in the third league. I mean, the guy scored 40 goals in the NHL, although he's playing with Dougie Wade. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Wally, you could have scored 40 goals playing in the NHL with Dougie Wade. But
Ah, thank you, but I doubt that. But thank you. I'll take it.
okay, but yeah, you know what? And you know what? Maybe I'm selling Selly short because Selly was actually unbelievable. I mean, he lots of years in the NHL, great guy. But everybody thought, Kitty, he's coming to us. We're going to rip it up. And we go, our first game we played in Dortmund, of all places. Just a outdoor rink, just an absolute shithole. The owner comes and everybody's expecting some kind of big show from us because we were supposed to win the league. And fuck, we lose 9-0. I'll always remember that because that was Selly's first game in Duisburg, but
Was 9-0.
it was 9-0.
Kind of like my first preseason game as a new coach when I still got a couple cuts left and we go out and well, we just pissed her down our leg and lost 7-1, right?
But Selly was a guy who wasn't afraid to. I mean, in the third league, it was
But
kind
like
of
when you think about it, that guy had millions of dollars. He'd be over at Schweinebraten with me and Hammer, mixing it up, having beers. What a great guy, hilarious. But like he had millions and he was playing hockey because he enjoyed hockey and he was having fun. And you probably shouldn't bother getting in the way of that because he's going to go out and play hockey the way he wants to and enjoy it and have fun. And I thought he was a great player. I remember when we did a couple things in the neutral zone, like a couple dropbacks, a couple whatevers, and we were in sync and we knew what each other were doing. And then we got to the bench and Brittig was our coach and he goes, what the fuck was that? Don't ever do that again. Chip it out, chip it in. And it was like, and then we weren't allowed to play hockey anymore. And then he was on a tryout and then they didn't sign him because
yeah,
we played too much hockey a couple shifts.
yeah, I don't think Selly and Muff would have really
No,
gone along. I played with him as well in Landshut, but yeah, he was great though. Like, and it was so much fun and like to get it and like just like I told you before, I love hearing stories, and I mean he has a lot of them, right?
he
And
sure does.
good dude. I actually texted with him. I want to say now maybe for 4 months ago. I texted with him.
I should try and get him in the shed, eh?
You should.
That would be something.
You should. Yeah.
Mhm.
You should get him. You should get Sean McNeil. Sean McNeil's
You're
got a lot of
right.
good.
You know what's funny is people told me I was going to run out of guys if I kept going at the speed I was going. I actually disagree. I think it's the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for
Because
sure.
shed guys know shed guys and it just keeps on keeping on, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No. Absolutely.
Well, I guess I better get back to the real world, but you got anything for me before we shut her down? I don't think I have anything else. I mean, we went through everything. I always say winners win, and it's interesting we get to Europe and there's teams without money, teams with money. There's teams you sign up for, you know you can't win with, but then there's the guys that get on those teams, and then you either win or you don't win. And well, you're a winner. I mean, you've proven that, and I think that's why you're still getting invited to the Old Timers Germany games and why you're still a part of it. And it's who you are and what you're about and the teammate you are. It sticks with you for a long time. And I'm just starting to realize all that, you know?
Thanks, Wally. Yeah, if I'm going to say anything to you, if you're ever in Germany, you always have a place to stay. You know, I've got my bachelor pad has a beer fridge, and there's always Augustiner,
And
cold
I know how to
Augustiner
drink those. They just
in,
mess up my balance a bit, you know?
in the fridge.
Hammer
So,
knows.
yeah, exactly. But,
But the other part about this I love is getting people reconnected. And we can always do this again with some fellas that you've played with, that I've played with. And then all of a sudden we're all chatting and that's fun, you know? Because fun is
yeah,
fun.
yeah, yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Yeah. Thank you very much. I think what you do is great. I love your podcast, and yeah, I'm a fan, Wally. Nice to
well,
meet you, my
no,
friend.
thank you. Nice meeting you. And you know what? You guys did win and it happened. And it was tough, but I did win the next year, right? Deutsche
You
Meister
did.
2009. Boom.
You did. There you go. There you go. Winners win.
And this
Winners
has
win.
been another episode of Two L's and Hockey Tales with Burzy and Wally.